6 cups, 6 guests. No struggle. By morning, everyone was dead. One of them likely brewed the poison herself. Bangkok's Grand Hyatt Erawan is the kind of place where problems are meant to disappear behind cool marble and quiet carpets. But on a rainy July afternoon in 2024, 6 people stepped out of the elevator and into room 502 with a problem that money had made and might have been able to fix. They brought luggage, documents, and a topic everyone dreaded: debt from a failed investment pitch that had tangled their friendships and reputations across borders. By the next day, hotel staff would open that same door to a room gone silent, lunch plates untouched, and 6 bodies arranged around a table where the tea had been poured, but hardly any food was eaten. Among them was Shireen Chong, 56, a Vietnam-born U.S. citizen who had gathered the others, 2 Americans of Vietnamese descent and 4 Vietnamese nationals, ostensibly to settle accounts and talk about a long-promised project that never materialized: a road contract in Vietnam, even a hospital in Japan, depending on who was asked, depending on when. The sums were large enough to ruin friendships, small enough to keep everyone hoping for a last-minute miracle. Witnesses later said Chong had been particular about the tea. She ordered room service but insisted on brewing it herself when it arrived. No one thought twice. Tea is hospitality. In this room, it was also control. CCTV would show the group entering around mid-afternoon, then nothing. No calls to the front desk, no raised voices, no commotion that would draw security. When housekeeping unlocked the door after checkout passed, the scene looked staged by indifference. 6 cups, 6 place settings, a table that announced a business lunch but told a different story. Preliminary autopsies pointed to cyanide: fast, efficient, unforgiving. The lips and nails of the deceased had darkened, consistent with cyanide poisoning. Scans showed no signs of blunt trauma. In the stillness of a luxury suite, poison had done what violence could not: erase noise, leave questions. The inciting incident wasn't the tea, it was the debt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, according to relatives, pooled and promised into ventures that looked respectable from a distance and desperate up close. Those who came to room 502 had a shared need: clarity, repayment, accountability. But when one person controls the pot and the pour, they also control the pace and, as it turned out, the end. The first peak arrives with the autopsy results. Cyanide is the key factor, doctors at Chulalongkorn University said, and there were no signs of a struggle, no head injuries, no defensive wounds, just chemistry doing its implacable work. Police told reporters that one of the deceased was likely responsible for administering the poison, and evidence began to converge on the person who fussed over the brewing: Shireen. If she planned a murder-suicide to erase debts and end questions, then the perfect setting was a room that locks from the inside, and the perfect timing was a meeting no one would cancel. Investigators traced the motive to money: debts in the hundreds of thousands, an investment story whose details kept morphing: construction in Vietnam, a hospital in Japan. Families described funds handed over with trust and urgency. Police described a debtor who chose hospitality as a delivery system. In that room, the tea was poured, and with it, the end of negotiation. Cyanide kills by suffocating cells from the inside. To witnesses, it can look like sudden dizziness, confusion, collapse. By the time help is summoned, if it is summoned, it's already too late. The second peak arrives with the locked room mystery details: 6 uneaten meals, 6 cups with cyanide traces, and CCTV showing the victims arriving, with Chong alone when room service came, and the insistence that she would brew the tea herself. The narrative tightens. If she handled the tea, how did she become a victim too? Murder-suicide is one answer. A miscalculation of dose is another. Cyanide is a cruel accountant. It settles every number exactly once. Police indicated that one of the 6 must have done it. If that is true, then the person most connected to the brewing is the simplest theory. There were other threads: a tour guide questioned, metal containers recovered that might have stored the poison, and hotel staff testimony about the room's calm before the discovery. Debts tie people together. Debts also isolate them. When trust fails, the body remembers before the mind does. A gripped cup, a slow breath, a quiet fall. Authorities from Thailand and Vietnam coordinated quickly, mindful that a mass death in a landmark hotel can scare a city's heartbeat, and mindful too that the motive here was tragically ordinary, money changing hands and futures collapsing when it didn't come back. How many of us have been saved by the tiny frictions of life? An unexpected call, a delayed elevator, a friend who insists on meeting in the lobby. In room 502, there were no friction points, just a ritual unfolding. The cups were personal, the brewing private. The group couldn't know that the most dangerous part was the courtesy itself. And cyanide is the perfect weapon for a social setting. Bitter almond scent sometimes detectable, sometimes not. Onset that can mimic faintness, food poisoning, exhaustion. The scene tells a story of rest. No overturned chairs, no scattered dishes. Just a table where time stopped. In the absence of survivor testimony, the room must speak. And here is what it says. Someone with motive and means prepared the tea, and the science points to cyanide distributed among 6 cups, each sipped, each fatal, in a meeting set to resolve debts that had become unbearable ballast. If one of the dead did it, then the person who insisted on brewing holds the strongest thread. The twist is that the suspected poisoner died alongside the others, which reframes the act as an extreme and self-annihilating solution to a collapsing story about investments in repayment. Not a mastermind escaping justice, but a debtor closing the ledger in the most final way. Immediate aftermath unfolds along 3 lines: forensic clarity, public fear, and diplomatic caution. Forensics: cyanide detected in cups and victims, consistent signs in nails and lips, no trauma, no struggle. Police lean publicly toward an inside job by one of the 6, focusing on access to the tea and earlier control of the brewing process. Containers recovered may link to procurement, though details were still forming in early reports. Public fear. The image of a luxury suite turned silent crypt rippled through Bangkok's hospitality sector, and officials were quick to underscore that this was a targeted meeting, not a random threat to travelers. Diplomatic caution. With victims spanning Vietnamese and American communities, authorities moved carefully, releasing enough to quell rumor while guarding the chain of custody. The human part, the profoundly human part, is what happens when the tools of intimacy become the instruments of harm. A shared table, a reconciliatory tea, the hope that a private conversation can reset a public disaster. Those are the ingredients of repair, and they were weaponized, perhaps by someone too ashamed to admit losses, too cornered to endure exposure. If the debt story is true, the moral math was warped by desperation, and cyanide is the punctuation mark of finality chosen by a person who could not imagine living through the consequences. For investigators, the reveal is less a whodunit than a why now. Why choose this room, this day, this ceremony? Because ceremony creates alibis. No one suspects the person who pours. No one challenges the host in a culture of courtesy. Because the closed space limits variables. Because a business lunch looks like reconciliation from the hallway. These are choices a planner makes when the goal is not just to kill, but to kill all ambiguity too. And yet, ambiguity survives in the details. Dose, sequence of sips, whether one cup was stronger, whether remorse was part of the plan. The dead keep their secrets, the table keeps a few as well. In the months after, the case became a cautionary tale about diaspora finance and the hazards of private deals dressed in public respectability. Families pursued answers and estates, while police emphasized that the deaths appeared contained to a closed-circle meeting with a financial motive, rather than a threat to the broader public. The hotel quietly changed nothing visible, just brighter smiles and quicker knocks after checkout. The moral question is piercing. When trust is broken in private, how far will a person go to avoid humiliation in public? And what obligations do friends carry to verify, to demand receipts, to bring sunlight into rooms where charm and confidence are doing too much work? There is no tidy lesson that resurrects 6 lives, but there is a practical one. Rituals can be beautiful and dangerous, and safety sometimes looks like an awkward question asked at the right time. A shared meal, a poured drink, a second set of eyes on the paperwork. All the friction points that turn fate away from the table. The garden of friendship needs more than tea. It needs accountability, especially when money waters the roots.
Don't forget to subscribe to Real Mystery Reports for more strange, dark, and profoundly human stories. New true mysteries every day.